Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dorothy here from CCMA. You're very welcome. I'm just looking at the window here this beautiful Friday morning. You couldn't but be positive on a morning like this. To our final in this series of 4 webinars with Alison Creed of the Coaching Creed, who you see there on screen. So the weeks have flown by, Alison. It's frightening how quickly they've gone. But the theme of this has been leading your team into 2021, and we've got great participation and great reaction to this series of webinars. And today's webinar is particularly on the topic of team coaching, and Alison is going to share some insights with you on that. So we're just going to give a minute or two for everybody. I can see people logging in as I speak, so you're all very welcome. We're going to give it a minute or two for everybody to get in on the webinar. And just to say, as always, we want to make this as interactive as possible, so please do send through any questions, comments, observations. I know Alison has a couple of polls that Niamh, that you see there from WSI, is going to put out on the webinar that you'll be able to participate in, but really do share any insights that you have yourselves. And just while I'm giving everybody another minute or two to let you all know that hopefully by the middle to end of next week, we'll be launching a library with access to all of the webinars that we've run since last March. I'm going through them slowly but surely, tagging them at the moment, and I think at the end of it we'll have nearly 80-90 webinars with some superb content there on, you know, coaching, leadership, culture, managing remote teams, well-being, customer experience, digital customer experience, so the full range of topics that hopefully you'll be able to find of interest, and you'll be able to go in and access the material, the recordings and the presentations that you might like to use for your own internal purposes. So once that's up and running, I will be sending an email to all of the membership to let you know. But I can see we have a good attendance this morning. Great to see everybody, and hope you're all doing well. And Alison, I'm going to hand over to you if you want to share your screen and let you take it away. Thanks a lot.
Right, okay, can you share it? Can you see that, everybody? Dorothy, is that coming up?
Yeah, absolutely coming up. Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. Isn't it incredible how different our moods are based on the weather? Well, personally, anyway. So I'm feeling quite sort of positive today. Coming to you right from my home, from my living room. So welcome. This is the last of our series of 4 webinars on managing your team into, or leading your team into 2021. It's been a pleasure to actually do these. It's got me thinking, which is great, and hopefully it's got you thinking as well. So today we're going to talk about team coaching, and just like within this next 30 minutes, I am not going to be able to give you all the information that you could ever need about team coaching. I guess it's just the idea of today is just to give you some things to think about, some access to some resources, and I'm going to give you one model of team coaching which I use quite a lot and which I find incredibly beneficial, and I think would be, I've sort of picked that model because of the times that are in it and because of where we're at, and in particular thinking about you guys, most of you being, you know, mid and more senior managers, about what you could actually maybe look at for your teams. What I would say to you is, anything, you know, if you're looking at this and any ideas come out of it, or things that you either like say, oh my God, that's fantastic, or you think, no, that's definitely not for me. If you have any strong emotional reaction, I always think that's where you should go, either positive or negative. Positive because obviously that probably gels with who you are and the way you want to do things. And if it's a really strong negative reaction, it's always good to actually do a bit more research into that as well, to understand why you're having that reaction. Just get to know yourself better. Okay, so our agenda today, we're going to talk about what the leadership styles are and whether they are situational, i.e. based on the context of what's happening, or whether they're static, i.e. that you, shouldn't I use that again, should I? But are they, do you have one style and that's the only style, or can you flex? We're going to then talk about some of the opportunities and challenges of using a coaching style. And then we're going to just talk a little bit about how, you know, with anything that you want to do or change about the way you lead people, you really need to start with you. So if you're going to ask other people to change, you need to think about yourself and how you're going to change. I'm just waving there at my nephew. So the quickest way to start with you is to ask for feedback and do the work, because sometimes we don't actually know how we're perceived by others, because it's not just about what our intent is about how we lead. It's also how it comes off to others, how we act. I'm going to talk then about a model for team coaching called appreciative inquiry, talk a little bit about the benefits of team coaching, and then some practical tips to embrace team coaching. So as Dorothy said, interactive as possible. If you ask any questions or make any suggestions or ideas, please feel free to do so. Okay, so we're going to do a poll now about what coaching is available in your organization now. So if you would take a minute and just let us know there on the screen. I'm just going to close the door. Sorry, you go ahead. Now, back in the room. Okay. So, go ahead.
Yeah, just saying we're going to give it another 10 seconds and then I'll close it out. We've got a couple more answers still coming in.
Thanks a million. So this just to get a feel for what's happening now in relation to where you guys work. You're all from lots of different organizations. Okay, so all leaders, 90%. Wow, that is just such, oh, that heartens my soul as a coach. That is just fantastic. So coaching is available for you, for most of you, within your organization, which is fantastic. So what I would say to you is, if you're not already, I would definitely encourage you to actually avail of that coaching, because if you're going to use a coaching style with your people, it's pretty important that you've experienced it yourself, and you'll learn a lot from doing that. Okay, so there's here I put 6 leadership styles. Some people say the researchmen started off with 3, moved to 4, moved to 5. Some people say there's 9. The important thing isn't really the number. It's just, I suppose, to be aware of that there are lots of different leadership styles. And if we just go around quickly, the authoritative style, that's really around where you provide very clear instructions about the purpose, the values, etc., within your organization and what people's roles and responsibilities are. The affiliative is where you value the individuals, and it's almost like a collegiate type of scenario where we're in this together. The democratic is, that's where you build consensus, and I suppose the most famous sort of democratic would be a lot of Japanese companies where everything has to be done by consensus. Pace setting, really, this is where most of us start off as leaders, because we are actually doers as well as leaders. So if you started off, a classic one would be, say, within a call center, within a team, maybe if you were an agent on the phone or a salesperson, well, and then you are promoted to team leader. Usually you start off by basically pace setting, which means that you're valuing performance, and usually you're promoted based on your performance. So that's really about leading from the front, but also the problem with that is that you're the super team member, and that can make people quite sort of not feeling like they want to keep up if they feel like it's a competition. Okay. Coaching is where you value the development of your people, and a lot of research is, particularly for younger cohorts of our population, it's really, really important, this development piece. Their own personal self-development is extremely important, and so that's why coaching has become so much more popular in the past while. And coercive is very directive, top down, and not just telling you what to do, but sort of, manipulating so that you do what the person wants you to do. Okay, so each of these, perhaps except coercive, each of these leadership styles, I think, has a place depending on what the context is. So what I would say to you is, do a bit of research around this and maybe take a leadership style questionnaire. That's my tip, to see what your styles are, and usually you'll have a mixture of a few, and get to know a little bit further about what works where, based on lots of really good research out there, because different contexts call for different types of leadership. I think the coaching style is really, really good when you're talking to people about, in their one-on-ones, about their development, about how they're doing, when you're doing that sort of check-in around mental health, and coaching can be really useful. Okay. So Alison, what is it?
Therefore,
Yeah.
Sarah just asked what the leadership style questionnaire you would recommend, and I know you have the link there on the previous slide. And Sarah, just to say, we'll be issuing a copy of the deck to everybody afterwards, so they can click on the link and they'll be able to find that.
And because this is such a wide subject, I've actually, within this slide deck, I've put in lots and lots of links, not just to particular tools that you can use, but also to resources where there's lots and lots of different information. There might be tools, there might be articles, definitions, all that sort of stuff. So if you want to know more, that's a starting off point. There's also, you know, tons and tons of stuff out there on the net. Okay, so coaching is the art of facilitating the performance, learning and development of another. And what a lovely thing to be able to do. It's really a mindset towards your people, not just a skill. The basic coaching mindset is the belief that an individual has within themselves the wherewithal to develop. So in other words, they have the potential, and that they, if supported can find their way to their own development. So that's really what it's about. It's like, so when I go into a coaching session, I go in there saying, okay, I totally 100% believe that this person has the resources to sort their own issues out, and I'm here to support them to do that. And as you know, it's really, really important that people do actually come up with their own solutions, because then they buy into them. So it's also about meeting people where they are now, not where you are. So it's important to think, be empathetic, and get into the mindset, or get into the mind of your coachee. It's also a balance of challenge and support. So it's not all, you know, and those of you who've experienced coaching will know this. It's not just about someone listening, being empathetic and supportive. It's also about challenging people about the way they think, about what limitations they might be putting on themselves, about what assumptions they're making. The number one skill of coaching, and I'd say the number one skill of managing, is listening actively. Really, really important, this. And this is not to listen so that you can get your next question out. And this is something we Irish are like, we grow up in an atmosphere where people are talking all the time. We talk all over each other, and a lot of the time when you're talking, bantering with your friends, you're like, you're waiting to get in with you know, your next zinger. But listening actively is very different. Listening actively is really about really listening to understand, and listening to really get a very clear picture of what the other person is thinking. And the reality of it is it's not around being curious, it's more around just trying to look at the big picture. I guess it's a bit like the first point, is your questioning should be to encourage people to find their own answers. And it's also around creating this sort of safe environment, a learning environment where if you make mistakes, it's more around what did you learn from them. Okay, so this is just a slide on active listening, and there you can see it really is something that you can practice. So test it and do a little bit of reading around it, because once you start to do active listening, you will be amazed about how your relationship with the person who you're listening to will change. It's just, it is like a bit of a superpower, because we are all as individuals wanting to be heard, and we're all as individuals craving that. And so really listening, and part of really listening is actually playing back to the person what you've heard, paraphrasing. It's also, you know, if you don't understand, asking for clarification, it's summarizing. But really, I couldn't, if there was one thing that you would take away from today, is actually to do some research on active listening and to start practicing it. And it's really, really fun as well. Okay, so the opportunities and challenges about how you might feel if you decide to trial a coaching style. You might already have it, but the opportunities are really around your own satisfaction from seeing others grow. So it's not just about giving, it's about receiving. Massive, massive relief, particularly those of you who've really been in that this management style or leading style, which is very directive, where your people come to you for all the answers, because you tell them exactly what to do, or even say within your organization or your team where it's very much process driven and people just, people follow the process. So if they're not thinking, they're coming to you all the time for answers. And the relief at that not being the case is just phenomenal. Also, you get a bit of excitement at exploring other people's way of doing things. You learn heaps about yourself and about other people. You also feel really empowered because you're choosing how to lead. You're making conscious decisions about how you want to do things, and there's a real personal power in that. But there is a challenge. You might feel like you're losing control because you're out of your comfort zone. You might be doing things that take a little bit longer. You also will feel exposed because people will notice when you shift your leadership style. And so that really makes you feel like, because you have to practice to get better. So you won't be brilliant at the beginning. So the other thing is you might feel that you're ineffective because you're no longer telling people what to do or doing it yourself, like the little red hen. And that may feel like you're not actually making a massive difference. And you also will feel uncomfortable. You'll be out of your comfort zone. So this is basically my number 2 tip is you have to start with you. And really, are you up for change? Are you up for trying, testing a different leadership style? If the coaching mindset appeals to you, then can you actually self-coach? This I put in because I thought that quite a few of you would have the opportunity to be coached. But if you do, go for it. If you don't, that's okay. You can actually self-coach. And I've got some resources links down below, because it's all about getting to know how you think and behave. And when you get to know how you think and behave, then you can actually change that if you want to. So there's lots of coaching resources that you can access on the net, but also within your own organization. Important that you do that. Just like with your people, you start from where you are now and you draw on your strengths. I'm a real believer in, you are already really good at lots of things. Otherwise, you wouldn't be where you are. And so building on strengths is a massive positive way to look at things rather than always looking at, what am I bad at and I have to improve that. It's actually proven by research much, much easier to improve what you're already good at than just focusing on the negatives. And you'll see that used a lot in sports coaching. I would say that questioning yourself and getting to know yourself does require some courage. We're all on that journey. And sometimes you feel like you're scared about what you might uncover. My experience is that you just uncover more about yourself. And that's not a bad thing. Encouraging you to be curious. So try things, test things, take a look at different tools and try things out and be curious, so that it's not I tried it and it failed, because everything takes time. And the other piece is ask for and listen to feedback. Now you will already get feedback. I know some of you might do 360s, some of you might have done MBTI, some of you will do other psychometric testing, you might do emotional intelligence testing as part of your organization. Whatever feedback you've gotten, good to pull it out and have a look and maybe get it updated. Ask for more feedback. Feedback is just a wonderful way of understanding how you show up in the world from other people's point of view. So I've just put some resources there. I'm not going to go into them all. If you're interested, you can go and have a look. So this is one of a link here that you might want to start with you if you're doing some self-coaching. And this is a really simple one, which is really around, what areas of your life are working well, and start from there. How do you want your life to be? You do 2 of these, wheel of life. You can put whatever you like in the spokes of the wheel. Some people will split out health and they might put in, sport. A lot of people will put in friends and family separately, but you can decide what's in your wheel. And the idea of this is really to just give you a snapshot of where you are now, look at where you want to be, and use your strengths, so the stuff that's really working well, to perhaps bring up the other areas. So let's quickly look at the benefits of team coaching. So as we've seen, there's a lot of coaching going on within organizations, and 90% of you have the opportunity to access that coaching. I should have probably asked the question about whether there was team coaching going on as well, but In general, there's a lot less team coaching that goes on because it is more complex and it can be harder, but you can build elements of team coaching into lots of things that you do with your team. But the benefits of team coaching are similar to the benefits of individual coaching, but the difference between it is that it really creates belonging, this piece around the team being cohesive together, and it begins to start to have the team thinking as a team. Because when you do one-on-one individual coaching, each relationship is between you and the individual, and it's important to actually work on the piece of the team, not just between you and each individual within the team, and not just between you and the team as a whole, but between you as part of the team and within the team individuals with each other, because that's what drives collaboration. It's not your relationship with each person as a leader, it's their relationships with each other. So team coaching can also increase engagement. The pieces around engagement that are most important, one is the first most important thing is the relationship with the manager, and then the second, one of the second and third most important things I think are the whole piece around, you know, that I belong with and I feel comfortable and I feel safe and I have trust. So the other piece around team coaching is it fosters this idea of continuous improvement, because it's around the team challenging itself, and it's also a lot easier to challenge a group of people to get, easier is probably the wrong word, effective to challenge the team to reach, you know, maybe a stretch goal than it is each individual person. And also it means that if you work through your goals like that, then people will naturally backfill for each other. That really helps to break down silos within teams. Some of you will be managing teams where everyone does the same thing, and they might be quite homogenous, but some of you will be managing teams that are really sub-teams, like groups of people who do similar things and might work together, and that can create silos. So it's a really great idea for the whole, if you have a big team, bringing them together and doing some team coaching. It really helps to harness the skills and experience of the whole team so that they can be shared. So
Alison,
I'm going to
put one question from Oisin to you. Do you see differences? Sorry. Do you see differences in coaching needs styles changing in a virtual environment?
Yeah, I do. There has been, from my personal coaching practice, okay, similar things might come up, but there are definitely, in terms of coaching, the piece around belonging and the piece around the individual personal development is extremely important, because you know, because we've been so focused in the virtual environment, and in general the virtual environment is quite focused on the outcomes, which is great because it means maybe we have more autonomy about how we do our job, but the piece around the belonging and really feeling part of a whole and working towards a bigger purpose may be lost. And this is why I picked team coaching or even just talking about the team as a topic for today, because I think that piece is something as a leader that it's time for you to get back to. It's time for you to think about for your team, how are you moving them forward within their own personal development, because we can't be in crisis mode forever. We need, people still need to feel that piece around their own personal improvement and that they're moving. So that's why I think, that's what I think has changed. And within a virtual environment, you know, it's harder to do a lot of development, because you can't ask people, and you shouldn't ask people to sit in front of a computer being talked at like this for huge amounts of time. You know, I mean, I see, you know, the teenagers being expected to sit in front of Zoom for 5 and 6 hours a day, and I think it's really, really tough, and I'm not sure that that's really the way you develop and learn. So you have to, so that's the biggest challenge around coaching, is to find ways to do what you need to do and to develop people, but you need to do it in more bite-sized pieces. Okay. All right, so we're going to just talk about, hope that answered your question, Oisin. Oisin is my nephew, so really nice to have you on here, Oisin. Okay, I'm going to talk about appreciative inquiry. Just going to introduce the model. You know, I've done some training on this, and you know, it took days, but the idea behind appreciative inquiry is basically you start from where you are and you look at what you've got. So it's around appreciation, gratitude, rather than being deficit focused, and look at what you're missing. And this is a really good tip for us as individuals. You know, if you're having a hard time, it sometimes just that little switch around, God, I've got a lot to be grateful for. Now, having said that, you know, that's not the way you deal with depression, because it's probably the worst thing you can say to someone who is really has mental health issues. Oh, you're the lucky one. But in general, having a grateful attitude really helps our mental health, or appreciative attitude. So as a team coaching model, the good thing about an appreciative inquiry model is that basically it's based on what's already working well. It's based on moving forward. It's based on positivity. It's also based on lots and lots of really good behavioral research. And I've put some links in on the next slide, or the one after, which basically will show you links to the research and why it's so sound about why this model works. In general, we like to move towards positive things in our lives, and we aren't attracted by, you know, oh, I can't do this, or, you know, I need to fix what's broken. We're actually very much attracted to, let's look for solutions that already exist. Let's focus on what we're doing well. It's much more positive, and so naturally we move towards it. So this is really how it works. It's what it's all about storytelling. You start from a positive core. Whatever you want to work on, you have to put it in a positive light. So if it's, oh, the team meetings aren't working, as an example, you might think about that as you know, what great experiences have we had in meetings in the past, or what is a good, you know, what and people can, each person can say what's really working for them. And then as a group, you talk about what could be, that's imagining the future, and then you design what we should do or should be, and you get a bit provocative there around, you know, maybe not do something at all. And what we will do is destiny. So it's a really simple process that you can use on a team. You can also use it in individual coaching, but it can really work well within a team around, you know, how you're going to manage the team. Okay, so I've got some resources there. I'm just aware of time. I've got some resources there, and I would say to you, do a little bit of research on appreciative inquiry. I've used it a lot. It's really gives energy, and that's why, as I said earlier on, it's why I thought I would introduce it to you today, because I think at this time it's a really great way for you, and you can do this on a Zoom call. It's a really great way for you to get the team together and focus on stuff that you know isn't perhaps working as well as you wanted, but from a positive angle. All right, so practical tips on any coaching. There has to be an appetite for change. So you will be the only person who knows whether your team is ready to do stuff like this. Do some research and/or training. There's lots of training out there. Yeah. Well, or search for resources and ask for help. There may be people within your organization who are already trained on this, and wouldn't that be fabulous? And you can ask them to help you. Engage an outside expert if you need to. And for you yourselves as individuals, you could try a strengths appreciative inquiry conversation with a team member. If you look at some of those resources, it's actually quite simple, and it's really about, you know, talking to someone and asking them to frame what it is that they want to change in their lives positively, and use the 4Ds to get there. I've got also some tips about questions and stuff that you can ask. And the other tip that I have is practice active listening. And even if you think you're doing it, revisit it and practice it. And, you know, a good way to practice is actually to say to someone, listen, I want to practice this. So is it okay with you if today we have our one-on-one and I'm going to practice this way of doing things? And then you can ask them for feedback afterwards. Okay. So just at the very end here, so I want to thank you all for the last 8 weeks. These 4 webinars have been fun to do, and as I said, really good personally, because I got to revisit some things that I'm really interested in. So I wonder, could you take a minute and think about what further in-depth training would be of most interest to you? So I've just put 4 different types here. If none of these are of interest to you, I'm going to ask the next question, which is what would be of interest to you? Because Dorothy and I have been talking about perhaps doing some workshops, and really we'd like to do things that people really are keen on. So the 4 I've done there is leading hybrid teams. And hopefully we will have hybrid teams where there will be some people in the office some of the time. Whether you want to talk more about coaching, whether you want to talk about motivating, engaging your team, or whether you might want to look at some appreciative inquiry training. Okie dokies, leading hybrid teams, motivating, engaging your team. Great, okay, thank you so much for that feedback. And maybe, Niamh, we can just do that final poll and see if we get some ideas from people around what other training might be of interest.
Yeah, that poll's on your PowerPoint, I think.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, okay, here we go. Yeah, so can you just put in the chat box? I think it's a chat box or message box. Are there other areas of training that would be of interest to you? And in the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free.
Thanks, Alison. I'm really conscious of time, but we have a couple of minutes, so I just see if nothing's coming through yet. But if certainly from that previous poll, I just thought really quickly there, Niamh, it was the hybrid, managing the hybrid remote teams was the most popular one, I think, was it?
No, it was motivating and engaging teams.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I misread it. Motivating and engaging teams. Perfect, perfect. Yeah, I mean, certainly we're keen to make sure that we meet the demands of the members. Norma has asked how to effectively coach remotely.
Okay, Norma, I coach and have coached remotely for the last 7 years, and I use Zoom. I used to use Skype, now I use Zoom. And it's in, and I not only do that, but I also I work in the IMIs and I supervise people who are trained to be coaches, supervise them coaching each other, trial coaching, and I grade their coaching sessions, and it works really, really well, because you still have, you can still see the person. It's really important that you see the person, because you'll be picking up, you know, body language cues and stuff like that. But it works extremely well virtually. But I would say you need, obviously, you do need to see the person one-on-one.
Oh, absolutely. I think the visual part is so important, Alison. We were only talking about that. We did a board meeting earlier in the week, and just saying that whole, you know, you're hearing stories of companies where nobody turns on the screens. And I see that with the kids here too, school teachers and presentations with nobody turning on the screens. So they're looking at a black screen or initials for however many hours during the day. And it's, you know, it's not good. It's not positive. Really conscious of time. Sorry, go on, Alison.
No, I just heard of someone the other day who had to do a pitch, a big pitch to someone, and the person didn't have their video on.
Oh, that makes it very tough, really tough. And just for the last couple of minutes, just to mention 2 things that might be of interest to people. One is CCMA are going to be launching a mentorship program in the next couple of weeks, which Alison is going to be part of and is going to be one of our members or one of our mentors. It'll be for team leaders, sort of middle management levels, and we'll be asking people to apply to participate. And we hope on the first program to take on board 15 mentees who will have, who I only discovered that as a real word the other day. I looked it up thinking, is this a real word? And it is. But we'll be looking to have one-to-one mentors, and they'll be senior industry executives who are giving freely of their time for a 3-month period to mentor 15 members of the association. So we're delighted with that, and we'll be sending an email out. But in the meantime, if anybody's interested in taking part, just drop me an email and I'll let you know what the application process is, and it's all free of charge to members. And the other thing just to mention is that this day next week our webinar is actually with Tina Larkin and Niall Grogan of AIB, and Tina was one of the winners of the Team Leader of the Year. So I think that'll be a really interesting webinar that some of you may be interested in joining in, same time next week. But Alison, we hope we'll have you back in the next few months. Obviously, we know now what we need to work on. And can I just say, on behalf of myself and Niamh, thank you so much. These have been brilliant. I've really enjoyed this series of webinars and the recordings and presentations. And your presentations are superb because there's so many resources that you include there that people can, you know, delve in a little bit deeper and learn a little bit more. So I really encourage people to go and access them. And if anybody has any trouble finding them, just drop me an email and I can send you the links, etc.
Can I just say one thing? First of all, thanks a million, Niamh, for all your help over time and for your patience. And to you, Dorothy, it's been a lovely experience. But I'd also like to say to anyone who's on the call, you can hit me up. My contact details are on the slides, but also you can catch me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions, or have a chat anytime.
And if they miss all of your contact details, just drop me an email. And Julie has just said, thank you so much. I've got some good ideas over the last 4 webinars. So lots of thanks coming in, Alison. So everybody have a lovely weekend. Enjoy the good weather. It hopefully lasts. And we'll talk to you all again soon. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Eve.